Hey there, welcome back to another review. This time of the 2010 documentary Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide. There's also a sequel called Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide 2. If I could say The Definitive. Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide, Volume 2. Okay, there we go, that's better. The Definitive Guide, Volume 2, which is also known as Draconian Days. And I'd love to get either one of these on home video eventually. They're region free, so I don't have to worry about it because I have a region-free Blu-ray player. But people who don't have a region-free Blu-ray player, hey, you can still get your hands on these documentaries. They're really good. I haven't seen the second one. I don't know if it's really as good as the first one or not, but I know the first one I really, really enjoyed it. That was very interesting, very fascinating. One of the better documentaries I've seen lately. It definitely covers both sides of the argument really well. It covers the side of pro horror films and the side against horror films. At least the films that were on the Video Nasties list. People were against banning the horror films and putting them on the Video Nasties list, and people that were for it. And so it really makes a very fascinating documentary. It's not very long either. It's like 72 minutes. And I was curious about this documentary because it's another documentary my friend Matt had done a video about, and I wanted to give it a look sometime, and I just got around to watching it recently. Um, this is another documentary that has a really good style to it, like Adjust Your Tracking. That film had a great style, made it look like it was a VHS, even had, the VHS quality, the tracking issues, or you heard the phone number before the movie started, or all that other kind of cool stuff. Here you have a little bit of that too, but it only lasts for a little bit. It just gives you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to see an old VHS tape it, that's been degraded so many times because it's been rewound and fast forwarded and played the same spot. And they even said like you'd always know when there was a gory spot coming up because the screen would flicker and then the picture quality would go to shit. The film's directed by Jake West, who I think did a really good job directing it. It has interviews with a bunch of different that even has like directors that they interviewed, like Neil Marshall, director of Dog Soldiers. You had like Julian Petley, Mark Morris, Andy Nyman, Xavier Mendik, Christopher Smith, Kim Newman, who wrote a couple books that I actually have. Um, they also had the writer Stephen Thrower, who wrote Nightmare USA, a book that I have that's really rare. And he also did a Lucio Fulci book, which is called Beyond Terror, which is like even rarer. It's like $135. It's like the cheapest copy I can find on Amazon. You have Kim Newman, John Hayward, John McVicar, Geoffrey Robertson, Martin Barker, who is a very well-mannered man, and very intelligent, has a lot of great things to say. The film even ends with a quote from him that is a great quote, and I'll share it with you a little bit later. Margaret Thatcher and some archive video footage. Same thing for Mary Whitehouse, who, oh god, she just pissed me off after watching this. Freaking old fart. Old fart, or moral crusaders. I hate moral crusaders. I hate moral crusaders even more than I hate toxic crusaders. So Graham Bright's another one who's not very bright. The guy's a fucking moron. This guy who was the head of the Scotland Yard at the time, I forgot what the guy's name was. I almost don't want to remember his name because the guy's also completely clueless. So all these people really, except for a lot of the fans and the people who knew what they were talking about with these VHS, with the VHS, with horror movies, they know it's not real. They know it's fake. But, there's other people. Facebook notification, I know, sorry. I thought I pressed mute on my damn computer. I guess I didn't. But anyway, yeah, the side against the horror films, they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. They're extreme moralists, and it's sickening, and the censorship was just appalling. Anyway, the film, there's some really great editing in this. They did a really cool way that they showed you what films were on the Video Nasties list with a little bit of like a music video of all the video nasties, all in like one music video. It was a cool song too, really well edited. It was really cool. And then they get introduce you to the people who grew up watching some of the video nasties and inspired them to direct films later in their career, like Neil Marshall. Talk about stories about how they had these parties when they were kids to watch a video nasty. It wasn't, you know, hey, let's watch a video nasty instead. Like one kid said that I think it was Neil Marshall or one of the directors says that he saw the first video nasty he saw was, I believe it was a zombie movie. I believe it was The Beyond. It was another word for The Beyond. Not The Beyond, it's another word for zombie. Another title for the movie Zombie, because you saw the scene where the girl gets her eyes slowly punctured by a splinter of wood. And so the kid, like young Neil Marshall, Neil Marshall's talking about his childhood. He's like, I remember being scared. Then the next film, next video nasty I saw with my friends was I Spit on Your Grave. And he remembers just being so scared and appalled by that. He's never seen the film since because he doesn't want to ruin it. And so these kids saw these video nasties at a young age, and they turned out to be okay. They turned out to be upright, upstanding citizens. They weren't corrupted morally. They weren't. They didn't become depraved individuals like the people who decided to ban these movies. And so, yeah, the video nasties became really popular. I thought it was pretty interesting how they talked about how in Britain they didn't have a lot of the major film studios that were releasing these VHS. It was like independent studios, people out of the back of their vans just finding copies of some overseas horror film and just putting it together and putting it out into stores. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. And when it really starts to get really fascinating, really grab you, is when it starts to talk about the actual laws and stuff that when the video nasties actually did start to happen. How the government got involved and they started in conjunction with the Scotland Yard, started picking up all of these VHS tapes and they'd confiscate them, and the Scotland Yard would watch the VHS tapes and the horror movies and to see if they were worth being put on a list that can be taken to court. Really, seriously, taken to court and viewed by juries to see whether or not they should be banned or not. It's crazy. You would never think about something like that happening here in the States, but it happened in Britain, and it really fucked over a lot of things for a lot of fans. It really screwed a lot of fans in the 80s and 90s from seeing uncut horror films because of some fucking moral crusaders, bunch of sanctimonious assholes who were like, my morals are more important than your morals, and everyone should have the same morals as I do, and I'm going to make sure that's going to happen by having this law put in place that bans these movies. Because these movies are depraved, and they're violent, and they're awful. And they're evil. Really, so this actually came from the lips of the people who were interviewed, who were behind this stupid fucking thing. And they showed scenes of, this is heartbreaking. This is a haunting image for me. Just throwing these VHS tapes in an incinerator and burning them. That's what they did. When these films were determined by a jury to be depraved and awful and unlawful and bad for society and bad for the British people, they were put in boxes and burned. It was like Fahrenheit 451. It was put in real life, not in a book. Burning, it was just, that image just haunts me. Burning VHS tapes. I'm like, no, that's awful. Don't do that. And so burning VHS tapes, and then you have this old hag, this old twat named Mary Whitehouse, who was going around. She's from this like moral ground. She has like this, was it the Peacekeepers of Light or some shit like that? And she's going around like, these videos are awful. Have you seen them? No, I don't need to see them to know that they're evil and awful and irreprehensible and just absolutely disgusting and bad for society. I'm like, oh great, this is that guy who banned a bunch of comics who was a freaking weirdo all over again. Great, we needed that. Yeah, censorship. Yay! But because she was friends with Margaret Thatcher, who was in power at the time, she was able to influence a lot of people. She started showing she had edited all of the gory bits from these Video Nasties movies. And then, and then put them, spliced them together in like one video, and then showed them to people in the comments. Like, come in, won't see how awful these videos are. And then Graham Bright. Oh God, this guy is an idiot. His last name is Bright, but it doesn't fit how smart he really is. It's not so bright. Because this guy's he's one of the guys, big members of the House of Commons, and so he gets power. Mary Whitehouse talks to him. He decides to side with her. Decides to put together that just clips of nothing but the gory bits of the movies, which nobody watches. And then, of course, the media picked up on all of this and started just running with it and making up bullshit, connecting every problem that was going on in Britain at the time. The Daily Mail especially picked up on this and connected it with the Video Nasties. Yeah, these low-budget, terrible horror films are the reasons why somebody killed some guy, or some guy went and killed a bunch of ponies because of the Video Nasties. It just got out of hand. And there was this one man who was brave enough to write something about that was against the norm at the time. And that man was Martin Barker, who was brave enough to say, no, these aren't that bad. And he got slandered for it. In fact, he said like he had nothing but phone calls from all these different reporters calling him up like for hours, for 3 days. It was so bad that he eventually had to just tell his work, I'm not taking any more phone calls. And he decided he said that he was wondering whether or not it was a good idea to keep going forward with this or not. And he decided, I'm going to do it. And it was good. And he even went on TV while Mary Whitehouse and all these other Graham Bright and all these other just fucking moral crusader, sanctimonious asshole fuckheads who were all like, ugh! And he was talking about how the one thing that really stood out to me is how rude these people were. They're supposed to be the side of what's right and what's supposed to be good, and they're just interrupting me and being rude. And they show you the footage where Martin Barker is trying to explain to people who are watching the show at home, saying that they aren't that bad. This is setting a bad precedence. This is censorship, and then you have this priest who just goes, oh, but it just keeps interrupting him. And Martin Barker's like, hey. Can I speak here? Can I please finish what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say here, and then it was like, hey, it was like, what? So it was just like they were rude. I'm like, yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'd say they were assholes. So it was just it's just a really surreal thing to think about. Is that there was this time and period in history where a law was passed that made it so certain horror films, and not even the horror films, it got so out of hand that they're starting to ban and censor stuff like Apocalypse Now and Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and just going way, way above and beyond and out there with this new law. And it was just like, wow, this is just insane. I just can't believe this kind of thing ever happened. It's one of those, like, you can't believe it. You're like, how did they get away with this? How did they get away with literally censoring so many films and banning them from the public because of just a few opinions from some people in political power, and they have no context. That's the thing. They're showing these films to people who have never seen. The last horror film they probably saw was some Hammer horror movie. They're showing the Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox and Don't Go in the House and all these other, low budget gore flicks to people who would never have watched them in the first place. So they're not the actual right audience to be showing these films to, and they're the ones that should be the ones that are policing them or the ones that are preventing people from seeing them because they don't know what they're talking about. It's they have no context. And to make it even more obvious is, like I said, they put together that video clip of all the gory bits, showed it at House of Commons, and people got sick and left because they're weak stomachs, they can't handle it. And Graham Bright even said in an interview in this documentary, I believe that these movies, they actually did kill people on camera. It was real. I viewed these videos, these movies with the Scotland Yard, and I believe that people were actually killed. These movies are evil. These are terrible. This is murder. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's a fucking special effect, you fucking idiot. Mr. Graham, not so bright. God. People like this just... Fuck. And that guy was in office. And he's one of the main reasons why this stupid bill was passed that prevented so many British people, young teenagers, and just prevented so many people from just being able to choose what kind of movies they want to watch. It was ridiculous. And they started trying. Oh, they did a study with these guys to try to prove, with some research with kids, to prove that video nasties are causing some problems with kids. But they set it up so it'll give like a good result for them, for their agenda. So 40% of young 6-year-olds have seen a video nasty, but only because they only interviewed about 40-something kids. So the way that they did it, like there was only like I don't know, like a little bit of like some of the kids were interviewed. It was actually 27 kids. It wasn't even 40 kids. It was like 27 kids or something. So like 13 of them or something saw a video nasty, and so that just worked to their agenda. And there was this guy who was running, who was a dick, who once there was other people that were in the same group who were trying to call bullshit on his whole studies and how BS they were, he just overrode them and fired them. And it was up to Martin Barker to come in and be like, and have another guy come in and conduct a study of his own that basically debunked this stupid study this guy was putting together that tried to show that 40% of 6-year-olds are watching video nasties. And I love some of the interviews from some of the people on the documentary where they're all like, 40% of 6-year-olds are watching these video nasties? How? I haven't even been able to find one. How are these 6-year-olds finding these video nasties? So that was pretty funny. And it was just absurd. It was absolutely absurd. You got Mary Whitehouse coming in and talking about these are bad movies and they need to be banned, and then you have Graham Bright be like, yes they do, and a guy getting sent to prison, an independent film distributor getting sent to prison for nightmares and a damaged brain. He got sent to 16 months in prison for distributing a horror film. What? And that's the last person that got screwed and got sent to prison for that. But that's too many people. That's one person too many to get sent to prison for 16 months for daring to release a horror film on home video. Oh my god! Oh, that's so awful. It's unbelievable. I was like, what? And so yeah, people like Graham Bright, he's proud of it. He even says, "I'm really proud of this bill. It has my name on it and everything." And I'm like, ah. And then you found out in 2010 when the documentary was made that it wasn't official. The whole time when they were collecting all these movies and burning them and convicting people with the DPP, directors of public relations, public processing of public people. I don't remember what the hell it was, but doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure some of you Brit UK YouTubers out there, you guys probably know what I'm talking about, the TPP. and and so because of that bill, they were doing all this stuff, and it was never really official, and they were doing it illegally, taking all these movies away and screwing distributors and screwing rental providers and rental store guys over for bullshit reasons and that weren't even legal until 2010. Finally, they put it in front of the people who were supposed to look over it, and finally it was passed. I'm like, it should have been thrown out. This is so backwards and archaic and just awful. And I feel bad for any of you Brits who had to deal with this stupidity. If you were alive and you were young and you were into horror films, you just were fucking screwed. You had nothing, you couldn't see them because they were getting cut to shreds by the ratings board and because of these fucking twats. So yeah. But there was a decent, there was actually kind of a good effect that the Video Nasties whole thing had. It had a good effect on these filmmakers like Neil Marshall, and it really influenced them on their future projects. So that's a good thing too. But the censorship is just wrong. And then there's the giant leaps that the papers and the Daily Mail and the media made were just ridiculous, connecting everything, every riot, every problem to the Video Nasties. It's just ridiculous. And you even had like the movie. I love this scene. They showed like they had, and I believe it was the Martin Barker. He was talking about it just got so out of hand that I remember one article specifically in the Daily Mail where they showed Video Nasties are evil. They had like a TV, Video Nasty, and then they had the devil. Like, oh, Video Nasties are evil. There's something supernatural about them. And then the documentary itself actually had a fun, clever short where they showed a video nasty, just the VHS that just came to life and started like attacking this poor woman, and the VHS itself started spooling around her, wrapping around her, and suffocating her, and the VHS is spitting blood at her, and then it gets back, it moves on its own accord. It just moves around like it's possessed, and then flies back into the VCR and plays the rest of the review, the rest of the documentary, which that was clever. That was pretty fun. And then, like I was mentioning earlier, the documentary has this great quote at the end from Martin Barker, who talks about the censorship and how awful it was, and how we really should remember this. This is something that we should not. This is a part of our history that. And not only, I know it's not a part of United States history or history over here in the States, but it's a part of history regardless. And it's still something that stands out, where Martin Barker says, this is a great quote, I don't know if I can do it justice. And I think the most interesting thing to me is just how little historical memory we have. The next time there's a panic, we won't remember just how stupid the last one was and how people get away with things. And to me, that is the most important lesson about this campaign. The evangelicals got away with murder. They got away with fraud. They got away with deceiving people. They now laugh it off, and the fact that all of these films, almost all of these films are now available uncut in the public domain, they don't care. Because they move on. Because what they want to do is dominate the present, and they don't care about history. Critical voices have to care about history. We have to care about the way in which things got controlled in the past, because that's when damage gets done. And if we don't keep that historical memory, we will allow them to do it again next time. I thought this was great. It's very poignant. And it's something that I even think about to this day about other stuff. I look at it when I think about like remakes, or you think about all these other problems in history, wars, and all these other problems and mistakes that we've made in history repeatedly, over and over and over again. Probably because we don't learn from our history. And if you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it. So hopefully, I just hope nothing like this kind of mass censorship, where the moral right, they just decide what is right for everybody. And I'm sorry, you know, excuse my French, but fuck you and fuck your morals, because they're not my morals. They don't have to be my morals either. So yeah, great documentary. I highly recommend it. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. I really want to see the second one. I just don't have the money to buy it now, and it's not available online anywhere I can find it. But I really do want to see Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide to Draconian Days, because it's probably going to be just as interesting and just as good as this installment was. And yeah, it's short documentary, but it's very sweet, very well done, very well edited, a lot of good juicy bits in it. And I gotta say once again, my heart goes out to you Brits for dealing with this bullshit and having to deal with that censorship and having to deal with twats like freaking Mary Whitehouse and Graham Bright, who still thinks to this day that something like snuff, which is absolutely 100% fake, and you could tell, he thinks it's real. And he's one of the main reasons why this stupid Video Nasties ban happened in the first place. But anyway, yeah, I feel bad for you Brits, but now you guys get to see it uncut now, so it's one of those things where it only really affected you when if you were alive during that era, and then ultimately you were still able to see those films, but you just weren't able to experience it the same way as a lot of other people over here in the States or other countries that didn't have to deal with that bullshit. So I really do feel for you guys. And yeah, don't do it again. Uh, don't take a page from those moral crusaders over there in the 80s in Britain, US. Please don't fuck with my horror movies. I don't. No, please don't. I don't think they will. Not anytime soon, anyway. But anyway, great documentary. As you can see, I haven't been really rating these documentaries out of stars because I really don't. It's a documentary. Like I said, I think the main thing you want to get out of a documentary, was it entertaining or was it interesting or was it well balanced? It was Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide was entertaining. It was well paced, well edited, well directed, well balanced, and it was very interesting, very fascinating. I give it high marks and I highly recommend it. Anyway, thank you for watching my review of Video Nasties, The Definitive Guide, and I will see you guys later. See ya.